$WARD nigga. NAYIMED.
Welcome to my channel. My name is Nayim. I'm your host, and today, before we get started, thank you to everybody for being patient. We are back with daily uploads starting today. I'm rested, recharged, reloaded, and ready to go. So I won't bore you with that. And I got like 200 comments, so I'm almost done replying to everybody, and I want to make sure I get to everybody. So thank you guys so much. Now, we are talking about Boosie today. And I have this textbook. I hope you can see it clearly. And if you can't see clearly because you're driving or doing whatever you're doing, just listening, this is a textbook in the subject of English, and it's called Writing Matters. The reason I have this textbook today is because in this book, it explicitly talks about a specific type of writing style called the understood you, when we're talking about writing sentences or addressing anything and anybody, right? What is the understood you? The understood you in writing means I don't have to specifically call you out by name or directly say anything for you to understand that I am talking and addressing you. Talking to and addressing you. An example of the understood you would be help. If I scream help and you're the only person around, or it's a group of people around, I'm not saying, hey, whatever person name is, because you might not know it, help me. Hey, group of people, help me. Help. You know that help means I'm talking to you. You right there in proximity is you. Screaming fire in the movie theater. Grab me a paper towel. If you're the only person in there, you know that I'm talking to you. That is an example of the understood you. Boosie does not understand yet that keeping it real or being too real in an industry, in a time where being real only gets you a life sentence, being real only gets you murdered, being real only gets you targeted. Boosie 40 years old. And Boosie, I remember Boosie before, because I'm from the music culture. I grew up in the 2000s. I was born in the 90s. I grew up in the 2000s when, it was time. Boosie debuted in like 99. So in 99, I wasn't even 10 years old. But Boosie got hot when I was in middle school. And that era of music was completely different. I wasn't even in high school, like even close to high school by the time Boosie, became what Boosie is. And then, the murder trial and everything that was going on with Boosie, that solidified him, especially in the South. If you from the South, you know that people will really argue about Boosie and Wayne, like who's better. Like that's liable to get your ass whooped down here, because there's groups of people who's just like, Boosie is just so real. He's so, like there's people who look at Boosie the way that I look at Gucci and Jeezy and Yo Gotti and them. That's how serious Boosie is here. And a lot of times, I was telling my mama this the other day, that the older we get, the more subtle we get into these mind states, especially now that Boosie had to actually survive the mixtape era. He had to survive when people had to actually go buy albums. Boosie was never no person that could sell 1 million albums in a week. He was never one of them, but he stood the test of time because that was the era where you had to go outside. It's a lot of people who they just now going platinum. It's a lot of people who just now getting sales because of the dynamics of how the streaming and stuff is going today. Boosie might have a song that sell 100,000. He might be making more money today because the technology has created a way for people to cheat, but he's not from that. He's settled in his ways of going outside. That's why when people are like, he's too real and he keep it and this is that, we're missing that element in music in general. This is why he can say what he want to do what he want to do, but it's not going to pan out the way that it would have back in 2004. It's not going to pan out, not even in 2010, because we're in a system now where I'm bringing back up the understood you, is that now that things have become more crazy within the genre and more crazy within just the world, period, and rappers are targeted more. And the reason that rappers are being targeted more is because there's more freedom. You know, back in the days, you used to have to go to New York and hope somebody heard you and you could give them a tape or give them a CD. Nowadays, you don't even have to know anybody. You could record a song in your house, upload it, and you could go viral, or anything can really happen with your song. The playing field is even. And when we have somebody like Boosie, and we're talking about Boosie and all of everything that's encapsulated up to this point of him now getting the bond on his federal gun situation. With Boosie and the talking too much and not knowing is because he's set in his ways. Point blank, period. Boosie doesn't understand. This is number two. He doesn't understand that he don't have. Keeping it real does not get you allies. Keeping it real will keep your fans happy and bring people who have sense into your life, but it doesn't bring you allies in this game. Math Hoffa is not an ally. Vlad is not an ally. No, you have no allies. Charlemagne and Envy and they're not your allies. They don't care. They know that you're going to come up here and say something crazy. And the reason that I brought up the understood you is because, Boosie, you've been in so much trouble and you've been in so many dire straits that you have to know at all times that the police is watching you. It don't matter what type of police it is. You can blame it on confidential informant. You should consider everybody around you a confidential informant. Point blank, period. It's because you've done so much. You've done so much, and they feel like they took their biggest L with you. I think you've said that before as well. You know, they took their biggest L when you was able to walk away, because the system that was created for them to bring down and incarcerate people like you for profit, it didn't work. You had the money, and we're going to talk about money in a second, but like you had all the resources to make sure, and you had that power to make sure that you was not going to be able to go to prison, but that only worked at that time. I want to deal with society in regards to what Boosie's mindset is. You know, everybody want to talk to Boosie, and I think it's a good thing, but everybody wants to talk to Boosie because they know that Boosie is going to say things that get reactions, that get traction, and Boosie's not going to hold back. He's not going to hold his tongue. But like I said, this game ain't for people like that. This is why I personally thought, and I guess I'll just leave that dealing with society, because I feel like we already know that. We already know that the police is looking at everything. You know, nowadays, we like to joke and say that a 14-year-old boy at the house with a computer could be a cop, but that's not even far-fetched. You know, they have if you've ever had a police officer in your life or had a police officer in your family, you would know that in this era, in this time, they have whole divisions and police departments that don't do nothing but sit in the police department on the computer, watching social media, looking at YouTube, putting stuff together for the computer, doing that. Not to be mistaken for a data scientist for a police department, which would be the people who could actually get into your cell phone and go through your social media. That's not the same. They're a type of cop, but they're not like the regular people, whatever, but they have whole sections of like people that are in the police force, on the police force, just watching social media. I know out here in Richmond, they caught somebody because they posted a video or a picture up at a gas station and they had a warrant. So they ran over to that gas station real quick. It was a whole situation. This is just police sitting on social media. We have friends and all type of people who just sit on social media just watching. They don't ever post. You think the computer, not the computer, you think the account inactive, all type of stuff. No, they just sitting up there watching. The police know way more than you know about situations. So I don't want to scapegoat, even though it might have really been a CI, but like I don't like to scapegoat that kind of stuff, because you should know better than to be walking around with a gun in your fucking waistband with your shirt. And you probably didn't anticipate nobody recording or anticipate no whatever with the shirt. But let me just put this note in here. Boosie had a Springfield Hellcat tucked in the back of his waistband. I didn't see no holster. But we're going to talk about that in an episode coming in maybe a week. But not specific to him, but Boosie had a Springfield Hellcat tucked in his waistband, and a Springfield Hellcat is a gun, 9mm. Do you know? So before Boosie video on IG Live on somebody else's account with the Springfield Hellcat, before that was posted up there, you could get a Springfield Hellcat for about $400, and that's without the optic. That's without the threaded barrel or the ported whatever barrel is on the Springfield Hellcat. $400 for that gun. Soon as Boosie gets arrested for federal charges, Springfield Hellcat went up to $800. I'm not even BSing. It's always something. Anyway, like I was saying, when Boosie is on live, before Boosie's on live with the Springfield Hellcat in his waistband, $400 for that gun. Soon as Boosie gets arrested, Springfield Hellcat goes up to $800. This is the type of system that we live in, that as soon as you do something that is detrimental to your life, everybody else can come through and profit. I've already talked about this, the first part of all the people that make a profit when an artist dies and an artist go to jail. This is the system that we're living in. Let's talk about, and I feel like Boosie, before I say that, I feel like Boosie does a lot of good. I feel like he does, because I want to wrap this up because I do not want to be here all day. Boosie does a lot of good, and Boosie says a lot of good things, but people don't be highlighting all the good, positive things he be saying about the race, about the rappers, about anything that he does positive. They just want to hear the negative. They just want to hear the BS. They just want to hear the nonsense because that's the more entertaining. And why do people want to hear Boosie be entertaining opposed to listening to Boosie when Boosie has something that actually could help somebody that was like him, or help anybody that's trying to do good business or try to make it to the next level? Why don't they want to put those images out? Because in entertainment is a way for our brains to naturally downshift, because we're constantly having to be aware. We're constantly having to survive. We're constantly having to be alert all the time. So taking your brain to something that can naturally let it downshift and focus on something else, or just not focus at all and just consume something, we naturally need that as human beings. The problem with us is, us is just anybody who I just want to be entertained all day, is your brain does not need to be in a naturally downshifted state all the time. The people around Boosie don't get that. Boosie having the gun on him, even though he shouldn't have had the gun on him, and people, I'm just going to throw all this in the pot. People like to say Boosie should be able to have a gun. I'm going to tell you this right now. Boosie missed his opportunity to be able to be a legal firearm owner. And how did Boosie miss his opportunity? Boosie had the opportunity when he got off of parole and he moved. So he got off the murder. He did his time in Louisiana for the parole. And when he moved to Atlanta, and then he started the Boosie Movie Company, he was doing the rap snacks. He was doing the chips. He was into food. He was into building all this other stuff. He started all these other ventures. He was doing the pit bulls and selling stuff and Boosie Fest or whatever it's called. He had all these positive things going on when he was not getting in no trouble and no issues with law enforcement. I tell people that I deal with who need their firearm rights restored, even at a federal level, because that's what I do, and I've done it for myself. Convicted felon, firearm rights 100% restored, no restrictions, none. Did it by myself. I see people, it costs this much to do that. It don't cost that much. You just need to know what to do, and that's the importance of reading. But Boosie had a small window of opportunity. And I tell people that when you got something good going on, this is the time to do it. Boosie getting in trouble with the police, because one of the biggest requirements for getting your firearm rights back is no negative encounters since the end of your parole with law enforcement. If I can go on the computer and pull up a video of you saying fuck the police and you ain't nothing but a pig with a badge and I get your dick sucked, I'll hire you, quit the force, you broke as a bitch. That's a negative encounter. Even if you didn't get a ticket, even if nothing was finalized, that's a negative encounter with the cops. So that automatically dispel him from being able to be eligible to be able to be a legal firearm owner. Then he has a marijuana addiction. An addiction in the court is this, like when the court says you have an addiction and they consider you using substances and having an addiction as the same thing. There might be a way to prove you have an addiction, but if they can see that you are using marijuana, they will consider you an addict, even if it's one time. It might not be fair, but that's just how it is. And also, marijuana is not legal on a federal level. So Boosie missed his opportunity by doing drugs on camera. That's why we're not no advocate for doing no drugs, but we're definitely not no advocate for doing drugs on camera. Because this kind of stuff, it all comes back to you. Something as harmless as you smoking a blunt to de-stress could be the difference between you getting your gun rights back and you not having anything, and you might even catch another charge, and depending on who you got to stand in front of, because Boosie is not moving on point. Why do Boosie feel like he need a gun and blah, blah, blah? I'm not dealing with all of that. Who gives a fuck? Anybody should be able to have whatever they want to. But a lot of the times, because he know that the reason that he would even need to care that is because the people around him is not on point. He didn't get his shit together when he had that small window. And when you miss your window of opportunity, it's never going to come back for Boosie. He's never going to be able to have a gun because he's too much of a problem. He's too much of a threat. And not superficially. Just you keep having these negative encounters with law enforcement. You keep doing these negative things. Then going to the Melly trial, that would have been okay if he had already got his rights restored when he got off of parole and did what he was supposed to do. It would have took maybe 2 months to get his rights restored because he was exhibiting that he was a positive contributing member to society and was not going to be of any danger to nobody. He can't leave his mindset spinning back around to the beginning. He's not able to leave that mindset of being wherever he came from. And that's the problem with a lot of people. When you get to a certain level, you should be able to be like, I don't hate nobody. I'm not discriminatory against nobody, but I'm operating up here. With me, you're going to communicate up here because I'm not going down there to communicate with you. That's just my boundary and my standard. If you are a multi-million-dollar nigga, you should have a boundary and a standard of, hey, when I walk outside my house, I walk outside my house 100% in the right. Point blank period. That's my personal standard. When I walk outside this house, I walk outside 100% right. So if anything happens, I know that I was 100% in the right. But people don't look at that as cool. We haven't made no spaces for old people. Yes, Boosie's old. For old people like that to feel like they don't have to have the Springfield Hellcat tucked in their waistband like some Project Pookie. You know what I'm saying? Like it should be a space where Boosie, because, bruh, Boosie got a movie company. Boosie is into food. Boosie is one hell of a hustler when it comes to, like, he ain't Jay-Z level, but he's absolutely the street Jay-Z when you really think about it. And just to deal with the security thing, because I got to go. A lot of niggas don't have security, not because, you hear, okay, let me say like this. A lot of people don't have security and they like to lie and be like, oh, I trust the people around me. Security can get shot too. These my people, they really actually love me and they gonna really protect me. I don't know them. They just doing a job. All that is bullshit. A lot of y'all don't have security because you can't fucking afford it. I wish people would just say that. Because it's everywhere you go, there's always going to be some retired police officers. Everywhere you go, there's always going to be some retired military people. Everywhere you go, it's going to be some veterans or people who actually have security firms ready to be hired at a moment's notice. This is everywhere you go, especially when you go into these major cities. Rappers cannot afford security most of the time because think about it. If you want top-notch, top-flight, off-duty police officers, or you could just hire the police, or you could hire retired police, or somebody that's up there at that rate, retired military, retired police, Navy SEALs, or former Marines. you might have to pay $5,000 for the event for the security. A lot of these people they're not cash rich. They don't own their assets and they don't have it like that. Not saying that they're broke, but imagine $5,000 a day for security. What's 5 times 7? That's $35,000 a week. And that's probably for like top notch. Why would I spend $35,000 a week when I can give my homeboy $500 for the weekend and he be good? And I even throw a bone and say it's a legal gun. $500 versus $5,000 to make sure that there's a 100% chance nothing happened to you versus people, whatever. And my thing is, you don't have to hire people that walk around in suits and all that stuff. You think anywhere the president go, they got people walking around looking like the Secret Service? No. It be regular people who look like teenagers, people who look like children, all type of different old lady looking people, old cripple man looking people. They don't know nothing about it, but they don't know nothing about it not only because of their ignorance, but because they can't afford to get into that. That might be Boosie's issue, but Boosie's problem is he's stubborn and he talks too much. We back with daily uploads. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow.
Nayimedward, $, nigga. Nayimedward.